Right, a very good morning, everyone. Let me just check if we're live or not. Apologies for being a few minutes late to the class. Sometimes setting up the OBS takes quite a bit of time and effort. Yep, we're live. Cool. Alright, so today's class is another practice session in the series of critical reasoning that we've been up to for a while. Um, just give me a moment. Alright, yes. So, as always, before we begin with the practice, allow me to give you a quick introduction of the Unacademy portal, the Unacademy platform. Unacademy is India's largest learning platform, and I'm Prankur Arora. I'm going to be your instructor on this journey of learning. I'll be presiding over all the topics pertaining to the verbal ability as well as the reading comprehension portions of these exams. I'm a trainer, a coach, a published author, and I hold advanced certifications in facilitation from Leadership Management International. So, yeah, that's pretty much about me. Welcome aboard. There are quite a lot of features that we make use of on the platform. Right now, we are conducting this class over YouTube, but when you come to the platform, all the question and answers that we'll go through right now, they're conducted in the form of live polls, and you're always competing for a place on the leaderboard when you participate in those live polls. We regularly conduct tests and quizzes as well, the idea of which is to help you develop perspective about your learning journey. You will come across quite a lot of structured courses on the platform, and with one subscription, you get unlimited access to it all. These are the various subscription models. You can clearly see as the time period goes up, the cost of the subscription per month goes down. And if you use my name Prankur, you will get an extra 10% off on any of the subscriptions that you go for. Having said that, let's begin with the first question of the day. Alright, guys, try to figure out what the situation is, right? This is an argument construction question wherein we have to figure out the assumption in the argument. All right. So, what is the situation in the passage? The situation is we're talking about a particular company where they're saying that no employee they want to be associated with bad news in the eyes of a superior, right? And then they say this is because of this, all the information about problems at lower levels, it is progressively softened because no employee wants to basically, disappoint their boss, right? So as the information goes up the hierarchy, it is softened and distorted at every step in the management. And then they conclude that because of this, the chief executive is therefore very less informed about problems at lower levels than are his or her subordinates at those levels. So very कॉपोरेटी सिचुएशन वेयर दे आर सेइंग कि प्रॉब्लम के बारे में पता ही नहीं चलेगा हमारे चीफ एग्जीक्यूटिव्स को, right? So the idea being that they're saying no employee they would report bad news to a superior, and so information about problems, it is distorted, it is softened as it goes up the ranks of management. And then they say that as a result, your chief executive officer, your CEO, they know very less about problems at lower levels, and but their subordinates have more information about the problems at the lower levels because obviously they're not reporting news properly, is what they're trying to get at, right? Now, what is the assumption in this argument? Understand that the argument, the passage, it contends that information travels step by step. This is what they're saying, information will travel step by step. That is the assumption that they're making, right? कि information step by step ऊपर जाएगा, right? And जैसे step by step ऊपर जाएगा, information will become distorted, information will become softened. That is something that they are telling us, right? Now, understand that for this information flow, for this information flow, we are assuming that your chief executive will not be talking to the, his subordinates or her subordinates directly, right? So what they are saying is that the chief executive officer they obtain information about problems at lower levels from no source other than their subordinates. What if the chief executive officer goes and talks directly to all the executive employees, goes and talks directly to even the lower management? What if that happens? What if they conduct weekly reviews for different hierarchy levels for in the management, for different departments in the management, right? What if that is the case, right? So, what if chief executive officer has an assistant and that assistant talks to the assistants of all the other managers in the company, right? And so he or she reports all the problems to the CEO, right? There could be n number of scenarios where the CEO is getting information from other sources. So this step by step information, right? This step by step information hierarchy mein, it is not the only source, right? So we are assuming that it is the only source and therefore D is the answer in that regard. Hope this made sense. Let's move on to the next question now. All right, so what is the situation here? Right? What is the situation here? The argument is that to protect certain fledgling industries, the government of country Z banned imports of the types of products these industries were starting to make. As a direct result, the cost of those products to the buyers, several export dependent industries in Z went up, sharply limiting the ability of those industries to compete effectively in their export markets. And we have to figure out the conclusion, right? This is again an argument construction question wherein we're trying to figure out the conclusion of the argument, right? That is what the scenario is. So let's understand the premise once more. Let's understand the situation once more, right? We are saying there is a country Z, right? And we are saying that country Z has banned the importation of products. So imports have been banned, right? They are saying the imports have been banned because these imports would compete with the some of the products or some of the companies, some of the industries that are mushrooming locally, right? So if we import, it will be huge competition for the local markets, right? So then they are saying consequently, as a consequence of this, जो export dependent local industries हैं, right? जो export dependent local industries हैं, they have to buy locally, right? As a result, cost of products went up to the buyers because locally जो आप बना रहे हो वो थोड़ा expensive बन रहा है, और जो आपकी export dependent industries हैं, they buy locally, so their prices, the cost for them has gone up, right? And because the cost for them has gone up, the exporters are now less competitive in the market, क्योंकि obviously अगर आपका cost बढ़ गया है तो आपका प्राइस भी बढ़ेगा, और अगर आपका प्राइस बढ़ेगा तो आप कॉम्पिटिटिव नहीं हो इतना in the global market, right? So for example, if you were sourcing something for rupee 5, a raw material for rupee 5, now you're sourcing it for say rupee 7, right? Because of which अगर आप इस raw material को use करके एक end product बना रहे थे जो आप 50 रुपए का बेच रहे थे, now you'll perhaps be selling it at 60. So your prices have also gone up, and because your prices have gone up, you're not as competitive as you were before, right? So this is what the scenario is, right? Now you have to figure out a conclusion. What conclusion can be drawn from the export dependent industries, right? Let's look at all the arguments one by one, follow the process of elimination, right? And let's go bottom up. So let's look at E first. Those industries started to move into export markets that they had previously judged unprofitable. See, no information about the industries moving into different markets is given in the passage, so this is irrelevant. I can straight away eliminate this, right? Always define the scope of the information that is given to you and pick on those options that are actually within the scope. ठीक है. D, steps to offset rising costs by decreasing labor costs were taken in these industries. Again, no information about cutting labor costs is given in the passage, so I can eliminate D as well. C tells me those industries succeeded in expanding the domestic market for their products. Again, no information is given to me in the passage to support this conclusion either, so I'll eliminate C. B tells me those industries had to contend with the fact that other countries banned imports from country Z. Now, again, no information about other countries banning imports from country Z is given in the passage, so I can eliminate B as well. The only viable option remaining is A, which says profit margins in those industries were not high enough to absorb the rise in costs mentioned above. So, यहाँ पे वो क्या कह रहे हैं कि कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्ट्स वेंट अप, सो शार्पली लिमिटिंग द एबिलिटी टू compete इफेक्टिवली. आप compete इफेक्टिवली तभी नहीं कर पाओगे जब आपका खुद का सेलिंग प्राइस भी बढ़ रहा है. आपका कॉस्ट प्राइस बढ़ गया तो आपका सेलिंग प्राइस भी बढ़ गया है, राइट? दैट मीन्स योर प्रॉफिट्स वर नॉट हाई इनफ, राइट? So this statement, it properly identifies the conclusion that the export dependent industries were very low margin businesses, so they could not successfully accommodate the rise in cost of raw material or domestically made products, and that is why their costs went up and then their profits went down, and they were not able to compete effectively in the global markets. So A is the most viable option in that regard. Hope you've understood this. Let's move on to the next question now. Hi Ansh, you saying D now, alright. So, what is the argument here? The argument here is that there are two countries who share similar climatic conditions, and we are saying that they differ widely in their agricultural production, right? One is experiencing a rise, and the other is experiencing a decline, right? So, the decline is blamed on an overly centralized economy. That is what they're saying, right? That the decline is because of an overly centralized economy, right? Now we have to weaken the argument, right? Now, what point most weakens the argument that the economy is to blame? We have to figure out another reason. That is how we plug a hole into the argument, right? So, if there is a factor other than the economy that could account for the differences in agricultural production, then the argument is weakened. For example, if the two countries grow different kinds of crops, right? That may react differently to the same climate, then the types of crops rather than the economy would be responsible for the difference in production, right? And that is why I agree with you. D is the answer, that the crops that have always been grown in country X are different from those that have always been grown in country Y. Well done. Let's look at the next question. Yeah, preparing for SATs and IPMAT. एसएटी में तो शायद रीजनिंग नहीं आएगा, इपमैट में फिर भी आ जाएगा. एसएटी में यू विल नॉट गेट रीजनिंग क्वेश्चंस, इपमैट यू विल. See, all right, let's figure it out. uh, just give me a moment. Right, so again, this was an argument construction question wherein we had to figure out the assumption, right? Now the idea is, the situation here is that we are essentially talking about bicycle racers, and we are saying that they are the only consumers who are willing to pay for technological advancement, for bicycle technology, right? And then they are concluding that manufacturers, they limit innovation to the standards that are established for competitive bicycle racing, right? So they are only limiting their advancement or innovation to this because they feel that only racers will pay for the innovation, right? So you have to figure out the assumption here. Now, the idea here is that the argument is implying a direct connection between what racers want and what manufacturers make, right? We are talking about manufacturers, and they are forming a direct relationship between what racers and want and what these guys make, right? So therefore, the conclusion is drawn that innovation is limited by the standards that are laid down by racing authorities, right? But there is a gap in the reasoning here. What is the gap? That information that is needed to enable the conclusion to be properly drawn is the gap, right? Now, the drawing of the conclusion, it is justified if the information that bicycle racers buy only innovations that are approved by racing authorities is added. What if they are willing to pay for other kinds of innovations also, right? So there I agree with you. C is the answer, that bicycle racers, they do not generate a strong demand for innovations that fall outside of what is officially recognized as standard for purposes of competition. It properly identifies the information that appropriately fills the gap in the reasoning that was stated in the passage, that these guys could pay for other kinds of innovation also, no, if they've got good pockets, right? Why do they want innovations only pertaining to racing? They could be open to other kinds of innovations also. Well done, Ansh. Well done. Next question. It's tough. All right, let's figure it out. It is tough. I agree with you. It is a slightly tough. Now, the idea here is that when we talk about the situation, okay, Asim says B. All right, hi Asim, welcome to the class. What is the situation? What is the argument? Um, the argument is that for 3 years they're talking about how there are two divisions. One is the pharma division, right? One is the pharma, right? And the other is the chemical, right? So we have the pharma division and the chemical division, right? Now they are saying for 3 years, uh, when it comes to the pharma division, they've accounted for 20% of sales. 20% of sales, and then apart from this 20% of sales, they are talking about 40% profit. So only by contributing to 20% of the sales, they've got 40% of profit. तो बॉटम लाइन हमारी 40% है, टॉप लाइन का कंट्रीब्यूशन 20% है. राइट. एंड केमिकल डिवीजन के लिए आपका क्या हो गया, 80% सेल्स हो गया एंड 60% प्रॉफिट कंट्रीब्यूशन हो गया. राइट. नाउ व्हाट कैन बी inferred from these numbers? Only concentrate on the numbers. Right. So the income from the sales of the chemical division, we can clearly see that the income from the sales of chemical division is what? It is 4 times. Right. It is broadly 4 times. अगर आपका 20% फार्मा दे रहा है तो केमिकल से आपका इनकम 4 टाइम्स आ रहा है. बट वेन यू लुक एट प्रॉफिट कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन, right, when you look at profit contribution, it is only how much? 1.5 times, right? This is 1.5 times. So you are contributing to sales by 4 times, but to profit only by 1.5 times, right? So this means that clearly the pharmaceutical division, they made more profit per dollar of sale, right? अगर आपने X सेल किया है तो they are making more profit per dollar, right? That is something that we can directly conclude from this. Okay, is the stream not working? The stream seems to be working fine. Why is it still buffering then? I don't think that E is the answer. According to my understanding, the answer should very well be, perhaps, the answer should be C. That the chemical division has realized lower profits per dollar of sale than has the pharmaceutical division, because we can look at the numbers, right? The numbers are telling us that कि pharma ने 20% सेल करके 40% प्रॉफिट किया, राइट, वेर एज केमिकल ने 80% सेल करके ओनली 60% प्रॉफिट को कंट्रीब्यूट किया. सो दैट मीन्स कि इवन दो आपका सेल्स 4 टाइम्स है केमिकल में, आपका प्रॉफिट ओनली 1.5 टाइम्स है. सो दैट मीन्स फार्मा per sale they are making more profit than chemical, right? That is something that we can definitely conclude. The both of you went with B says pharma has faced stiffer competition in the markets than has the chemical. See, understand that there is no information about the competition that was faced by either division. That is out of scope. Yeah, that is out of scope. हमें पैसेज में कंपटीशन की बात करी नहीं है, राइट? what if the higher profit margin for the pharma, it suggests that there is less competition, right? अगर वो इतना प्रॉफिट कर रहे हैं, that means प्रोडक्शन कम हो रही होगी बट प्रॉफिट इतना ज्यादा हो रहा है, दैट मीन्स देर इज लेस कॉम्पिटिशन. हाउ कैन वी कंक्लूड दैट देर इज स्टिफर कॉम्पिटिशन? इफ एनीथिंग इट वाज फेसिंग लेस कॉम्पिटिशन, but competition has not been mentioned in the passage, so we will not conclude on it. Let's look at the next question. And don't get disheartened, buddy. You got the first three questions right, and that is really cool. It was a nice streak that you were running. Confusion between C and D. Alright, let's figure it out. So, what is the situation again? What is the situation, right? The situation in the argument is that, okay, now you're uh, riding on D. Okay. So, the situation in the argument is that Nitin says C and Asim is going with E. Okay. So the situation is that there is an ad for Megacorp, the Megacorp, the organization. We are talking about an advertisement at Megacorp, wherein they're saying that every advance in quality it raises customer expectations, right? And it is not enough for a company to be satisfied with the current quality, right? That is the situation, that the company that is satisfied with the current quality will soon find that its customers are not, because it is a cycle. Customer expectations go up, quality goes up, then customer expectations go up again. So that is the cycle that they're trying to establish, right? And अपने को infer करना है. We have to infer something basis the argument that is given to us, right? So the advertisement tells us that meeting or exceeding the customer expectations is Megacorp's goal, right? That is Megacorp's goal, that we want to meet or we want to exceed the customer expectations. Now, since advances in quality are also raising customer expectations, if you advance your quality, customer expectations go up, right? Now, that is something that is given to us. Now, meeting expectation in this case will imply that there is a need to make further advance. अगर आपकी एक्सपेक्टेशन चली गई, आपको क्वालिटी फिर से बढ़ानी है, और अगर आप क्वालिटी बढ़ाओगे तो एक्सपेक्टेशन आपकी और बढ़ जाएगी, right? So this is the cycle that they are establishing. So this in turn implies that Megacorp, it can meet its goal only if they continually increase their level of product quality. So Nitin has gotten it right, and Ansh was also getting it right before Ansh concluded on D, that Megacorp's goal is possible to meet only if continuing advances in product quality are possible. अगर आपकी प्रोडक्ट क्वालिटी की एडवांसमेंट कंटिन्यूअसली नहीं होगी तो आप अपना गोल नहीं मीट कर पाओगे. All right. Let me still validate this by telling you about why D and E are not really the answers for this one. D tells me if a company becomes satisfied with the quality, then the quality of its products is sure to decline. See, understand, while the ad implies that a company should not be satisfied with the current quality, it does not go so far as to say that such an attitude will basically degrade the quality of your products, right? It says that you should not be satisfied with the current quality, but that does not mean that the quality is declining, right? So therefore D was wrong in that regard. Plus E said Megacorp's customers are currently satisfied with the quality of the products. See, this is probably true if Megacorp is meeting its goal, but we don't know for a fact if they are meeting the goal or not, right? So therefore I will eliminate option E there, right? Let's look at the next question. Now, this is an argument evaluation question wherein you have to weaken the argument. Okay, Ansh says B. Alright. Ansh, don't you think B will strengthen the argument instead of weakening it? Read the argument again. I think B will strengthen the argument instead of weakening it. Okay. A, you're going with A now. All right. So, what is the situation? Right. The situation in the argument is that we are saying currently the risk of an oil spill, it is greater from oil tankers than it is from oil drilling. That is what they are saying. That drilling operations, they entail an unavoidable risk, but importing oil on tankers is even greater risk. So, spill from a tanker is more likely than spill from oil drilling, right? In order to reduce the risk of an oil spill, they are saying we should expand our offshore operations and import less tankers, right? That is the conclusion that they reach, that if we are to reduce the risk, we must invest more in offshore than importing oil on tankers. And we have to weaken the argument. Now, what point would most weaken this argument? See, the argument is based on the current situation, but present situation need not continue in the future as well, right? What if your features are improving? What if your future situation is going to be better than the current situation? Right? What if that were the case? What if oil tankers can be redesigned? What if oil tankers can be redesigned so that they pose less risk of an oil spill? If that were so, then adding that information would weaken the argument, right? So the lowered risk of oil spills resulting from improved oil tanker design could make oil tankers less problematic than offshore oil operations, and that is why I agree with Ansh. When he rectified his answer, A makes the maximum amount of sense. Asim went with D. Alright, let's figure out what D is saying. D says offshore operations usually damage the ocean floor, but tankers rarely cause such damage. See, understand, Asim, that while offshore operations may cause other environmental damage, the point is not relevant to the argument. The point only concentrates on oil spills, right? We are not concerned with other environmental damage. It is out of scope of the paragraph. Stay within the scope. Within the scope, we are only talking about oil spill. We are not talking about any other environmental damage, right? So that is why I will eliminate option D. Okay, sorry. Last question for the day. Asam says C. All right. So let's understand the situation in the passage, right? We are talking about a mail order company, TrueSave, by the name of TrueSave, right? Now we are saying that they want to reduce the number of items that are damaged when the items are in transit to customers, right? Now the packaging consultants that they get on board, right? They get packaging consultants on board. Ayushi says C as well. All right. So the packaging consultants, they recommend that to achieve the goal, the company should use more packing material, right? They should use more packing material. Packaging consultants say use more packing material, right? Now, the company's packers, they began using as much material as they could, yet there were still reports of damage. It was me as Ansh then. Oh, all right, all right, Ayushi. Okay. So yeah, the packers, they began using as much material as they could, and because of this, the instead of going down, the damaged items, they rose, right? They rose, and we have to explain as to why the number of damaged items went up. What would explain why the companies acting on the recommendation of the consultants, it did not achieve its goal? Why is that the case? Now understand that the recommendation, it involved increasing the amount of packaging material. So there must have been something about the increase that led to more damage, right? Is there any other reason? We cannot really spot any other reason here, right? So, more damage would be likely to result if stuffing more packaging material into the shipping boxes made the packaging less effective. You add as much packaging material as you can, but if it is making the boxes less efficient, less effective, if it is making packaging less effective, then that means that you will incur more damage, right? So there, I think B is the answer. When packing material is compressed too densely, it loses some of its capacity to absorb shock. Since shock absorption went down, the damage went up. You both went with C, which says the amount of packing material used in carton does not significantly influence the ease with which a customer can unpack the damn package. See, if customers, they were able to remove their items just as easily from boxes filled with more packing material as from boxes with less packing material, the items would be unaffected by an increase in the amount of packing material used. Are you getting my point? Plus, we are talking about what happens in transit. We're not talking about what happens when the customer is open the box. If customers, they were able to remove their items easily from boxes filled with more packing, then the items would be unaffected by an increase in the amount of packing material used, right? If it does not significantly influence the ease, then how does that make a difference? जब आपका कम material था, imagine you were using 30% of the material before. Out of the 100% space in the box, you were earlier using 30%. Now you're using 70%, right? You're filling all the empty spaces. They are saying it does not it does not influence the ease with which a customer can unpack. तो आप 30% मटेरियल भी उतनी एफिशिएंसी से निकाल रहे हो जितना आप 70% मटेरियल को निकाल रहे हो. एफिशिएंसी आपकी उतनी की उतनी है, तो उससे आपका डैमेज पे क्या फर्क पड़ेगा, right? So C is irrelevant to the argument at hand. Let me go to E now, because Nitin went with E. E says TrueSave has lost some of its regular customers as a result. Now, the loss of regular customers, it will help explain why TrueSafe got the consultants on board, right? अगर आपको business को effect आ रहा है तभी आप consultant को on board कर रहे हो, right? But it does not really help to explain why those consultants' recommendation failed to reduce the number of items that were damaged in transit. It does not tell me anything about why the recommendation failed. It only tells me why consultants were brought on board, does not tell me anything apart from that. So I'll eliminate option E in that regard. Okay. So with this, we come to the end of today's class. You guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I'll go live tomorrow at 10 o'clock yet again with a few more questions for us to go over. Allow me to tell you a little bit about the batches that we're currently running on the platform right now. Right, these are the batches that we've launched recently. You can start learning from all of these educators for free. You can unlock their special classes for free. See whether you'd like to engage with them a little more, subscribe to their batches, enroll to their batches or not. Alright, so that's pretty much about it. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys tomorrow now. Tomorrow, 10 o'clock, right? For IPMAT. So we'll figure out another topic after critical reasoning. Right now, we'll stick to reasoning for a bit, right? Asim and Shruti and others, they've been learning for a while. So this week, we'll stick to critical reasoning. Next week, we'll start with another topic. Alright, see you guys tomorrow now. Have a great day ahead.